Picture this. Somewhere in Lagos, Nigeria, a grandmother speaks in the local dialect to her grandchild, and the grandchild responds with English. But then somewhere in Johannesburg, South Africa, in a courtroom where serious legal proceedings are ongoing, they're flowing seamlessly between their local dialect and English. What are we trying to say? We're trying to say that in some regions across Africa, people are intentional about upholding culture, one of which is their language. But in other parts of Africa, these languages are going extinct. Now, according to UNESCO, there are over 2,000 languages in Africa. 500 of those are Nigerian languages, but 40% of the entire languages across the African continent are at the danger of going extinct. And that is because we are no longer particular about building our culture and building our language history. Now, Ghana recently made a landmark reform when they insisted that the local dialects be involved in school curriculum and made mandatory instruction languages for the kids. Today on Fafanua Afrika, we want to find out why exactly are people struggling to uphold their culture in terms of speaking their local dialects, and why is it that 40% of languages across Africa seem to be going extinct? I have amazing guests with me today to dissect this, and we will be having this conversation very shortly. But don't forget, this is Fafanua Afrika, the show where we spotlight the youths, the challenges, the opportunities, and of course we try to prefer solutions to some of these challenges. My name is Blessings Mosugu, and for the next 1 hour I will be your host for this very pivotal conversation. Now, language is not just vocabulary. It carries history, it carries culture, it carries origin. And that is why today we're talking about the local dialect, especially on the African continent. Why is it that we go to some parts of the African continent and we find that people are not ashamed to speak their local dialect, but in some parts people are eager to eliminate their local dialect and just stick to English? Today I have amazing guests, the youths, who will be telling us why exactly it's important, or why they think it's not, to speak your local dialect, especially in a world that is ever changing, ever evolving. And let's not forget, the lingua franca across the world is English. So why should we, or should we not, uphold our local dialect? I have my amazing guests with me, and I'm going to be starting with one major question. How many of us can boldly say that we are fluent in our local dialects? With a show of hands. Okay, so the first question will be, why do you think it's important to pass down the knowledge of your local dialects for children to be able to speak it fluently? I mean, in a world where all we need to communicate is English, basically. Who wants to go first?
All right, so my name is Adekola Shikra Omotomiwa, a student of Lagos State University. So my perspective about this is that language is not just a communication, it's not just a tool for communication, but it is a memory, power, and identity. So now that most children express themselves fluently in English and find it so difficult to even speak their own dialect, and my question now is that when we educate a child based on a language they even barely understand, does it mean we are educating them, or we are just forcing or teaching them to memorize a language that they don't even understand? So now I feel like we just have to, the future belongs to the children that can actually think in their local dialect and express themselves globally, because the both has to be prioritized. Because if Africa loses its own language, it does not just lose its words, but it loses identity. And also, if we ignore global languages, it's going to increase the high tendency of losing opportunities. I mean, so we just have to think in our own modern tongue and speak it out in global languages, since that's just what people understand. And as it is now, in Africa, we have over 2,000 languages, and that's not even up to 1/3 of the total languages in the world wide. So why should we just focus on one particular, which is English? So that's just basically what I don't understand. So I feel everybody has to just prioritize their own local language over indigenous languages. Thank you.
All right, anyone else wants to go?
Hello everybody, my name is Joseph. I'm the General Secretary of the Mass Communication Students Association, and I think when the need for centralization of languages originally came, it came because there was a need for a centralized government. So that was why there was a need for a centralized language. And I think we've evolved beyond that now. We've understood the need for local government areas. We've understood the need for grassroots relations. We've understood the need to empathize and relate with people. And that is why the local dialect should be preserved. I mean, just like she said, it's what carries the identity, the stories, the culture, the values, everything, every single thing. There are just some things that cannot be translated no matter how much you try. I mean, I do not want to start quoting some, but how do you just want to go about that? And I mean, in the course of trying to translate some things from one language to the other, the original meaning or context can even be lost and misinterpreted.
All right.
Hi, my name is Timlade Alunge. I'm from Nigerian Institute of Journalism. So I would say that we cannot put attention on a language that was brought into our community, our nation, our continent through colonization alone, which is something that I would feel like that's where the major thing is. So language is not just an identity, it is power. Language is not just power, it is something that shows our uniqueness. And for a fact, if I bring it back home, Nigeria has more than 350 ethnic groups, and even in the Yoruba language, we have deeper Yoruba tongues. In Igbo, we have the deeper Igbo tongues. In Hausa, we are able to separate the Hausas from the Fulanis. They will tell you when you move with them, you sit with them, you have thieves. So centralizing language is a big thing that we need to understand, because it takes away our uniqueness, it takes away our unique value. Just like Joseph said, there are some things that can never be interpreted absolutely well when it is being said in another language, or when you are interpreting it or you're translating. The uniqueness of that message is in its language. Also, I know that for sure that we are trying to do a lot of adaptation, and then that's the reason why we have people talking about polyglots. But at what point would we say that, oh, you are a polyglot because you can speak Yoruba, you can speak Igbo, you can speak Tiv, you can speak these multiple languages in Nigeria as well at the global stage? I think that's one thing that we need to understand. So it's the uniqueness and the value for us that matters.
All right, very quickly before the next person speaks, and this is me playing the devil's advocate, right? So if you were given the option of learning Spanish or French, knowing that you have better chances of, global opportunities, I mean, if you go to the United Nations, for example, you're able to speak French, you're able to speak, nobody really would want to communicate with you in Yoruba or Hausa. So would you rather learn French or Spanish, or you would prefer to learn the deeper Yoruba or the deeper Igbo or the deeper Hausa just to uphold your culture? Okay.
My name is Adekunle Olashibomi. I'm a student of linguistics, University of Lagos. In my opinion about this, I would say learning a foreign language can be considered as a skill in this context. Language competency, it does not matter if you are speaking a global language or your indigenous language. We all can be bilingual, a polyglot, a multilingual. So I feel personally that as a citizen, it should be a very important thing that we can speak more than one language. Our mother tongue being our first language and a global language, be it English, English, French, Portuguese, or Spanish. So me learning Spanish can also be like I'm learning a skill outside my own indigenous language. So there's language policy whereby it is not been implemented. They said indigenous language should be what we use to teach children as their primary education, but it's not been implemented. It is just there. It has not been implemented. So I feel if more of this implementation can happen by the government, it would help each and every one of us to be able to speak more than one language, our indigenous language and a foreign language. So we preserve our indigenous language while maintaining foreign participation for trades and international communication with other countries.
All right. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi. My name is Shomoye Caroline. I'm a digital marketer and content creator. Okay, to the question, will I prioritize learning French or other language since it positions me for the global opportunity. Trust me, that is what I will do. I'm going to learn French. While I'm a Yoruba girl, I can speak my language fluently, but I'm also going to learn French because once I get into that community, it is that language that makes me acceptable as someone coming into the community. Let's use the example of the Hausas in Nigeria. Trust me, if you want to get a product from an Hausa man and you speak their language, trust me, you've won their heart and they are going to give you a reasonable discount. So as a student or someone who is looking forward to study in probably France or Portuguese, trust me, I'm going to learn their language. Thank you.
All right, my name is Kende Olatunji. I'm a content strategist. So basically for me, I would say that learning other languages such as Spanish and French is a skill that you must implement because now you don't limit yourself to the standard of your own local language. But however, there should be a balance to it, knowing where your root is, because language is not just a communication. We have mostly seen language as communication back to like when British brought the colonialism. But language is not just a communication, it's an identity of who you are, a worldwide view of how they see you, and it's your roots. Because once we lose our own language, we already lose foundation of global competitiveness, because that defines who we are. And we can't compete if we don't know who we are, or people can identify us. And that's what makes us stand out from other people. That's what makes us define ourselves. Because if we lose our Yoruba language, how do we identify ourselves as being Nigerians? How do we identify ourselves being Yorubas? But other countries, Spanish, France, and other countries, they can stand out because their language is dominating the world right now. But if we still stand our root, our language can still dominate the world someday. Because then they're taking it as a priority for them. That's why their language is dominating the world, and it's very, very important. That's all.
Good day, everyone. So, my name is Yebali Praise, NIJ student of mass communication. So, for me, preserving indigenous language is important, but prioritizing global language is crucial for social growth and economic growth because it gives access to international opportunities. When I mean international opportunities, for example, if I'm somebody that I can speak my language, okay, but I still have to learn the global language because I can communicate well with people outside the country because nowadays the world is evolving. So indigenous language is not probably a must because if we are going to be relating with other people in other countries, so we must as well learn their languages because sometimes I hear that some of them say they even try to learn our language. So it's better off we do the same thing. Thank you.
Now, my name is Olatunji Moshood Aderogba from Department of Islamic and Common Law, Lagos State University. So concerning the question that should we prioritize colonialism language over our indigenous language, I think that the history and the heritage of a certain tribe is embedded in the language. So according to what everyone has said, I'll just give a single example. There's a proverb in Yoruba that says, "Elede mi adoyo, ayu elapo." So the origin of that proverb let us know that during the Alaafin time, so you know that Alaafin usually collect tributes from those people under them. So there was one particular tribe then that they say that they don't have cow, they don't have camel, they only have pig. So Alaafin now replied to them that Elede adoyo, ayu elapo. Use that pig to bring your tribute to Oyo. So from this proverb, you know that we are going to understand that Oyo was once a big empire from that proverb. So that proverb will let us know that Oyo was once a big empire. So from that proverb, you have a little history of Yoruba. So same to other proverbs like that, that will be telling us the history of Yoruba language.
My name is Ajala Kende Tojib, a law student of the prestigious university, Lagos State University. I'm an Islamic and Arabic lecturer, teacher, also a writer. To this, I'll start with the Yoruba adage, which says, "Ìfẹ́ tí a ní sí adìẹ kò dénú bí ká pa jẹ," which means all these foreign countries, they do not love us to that extent. They want us to learn their languages just to make us clerks, just to make us translators for their languages. Not that they have some innate ideas that will benefit us. They make us learn their languages just to make us instruments. In one of the work of Walter Houdini, he said, how Europe underdeveloped African. Firstly, they came with the instrument of language. Firstly, language is culture. Let me just say now, for example, a grandmother asks his child. A grandmother asks a child. Now, you learned the foreign language, you left yours. What have you gained? What have you surrendered? You have gained linguistic colonialism, and you've lost or you've surrendered political decolonization, which means you lost your own value as an individual while you prioritize others' value. To my own perspective, I would rather learn my language, because from me to my generation, if we prioritize my language, then we gain the global value through the world.
Okay, before the next speaker, I also want to ask a follow-up question, right? Now, gone are the days when cultures were fragmented, in the sense that the Yoruba people lived amongst themselves. So people lived in Oyo, grew up in Oyo, got married, to themselves and continued like that. But now you see a child grows up in Oyo State, serves in Anambra State, goes to Lagos and works with a multinational, goes to the UK to do their masters. And so you see that there's a lot of infiltration, right? You don't expect the child to speak the Yoruba language, for example, to everybody that they encounter. So with this in mind you, I'm still playing the devil's advocate. Would a child rather develop their English-speaking skills or stick to what they know? I know that both can coexist at the same time, but if it was a case of preference, which would it rather be?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kazim Abdullah Ayobami, and I'm a recent graduate of Lagos State University, a data analyst and a research assistant. So, studies have it that 30% of students in Africa tend to understand what is being taught to them more when they are being taught in their indigenous language. Then we have in Mozambique, since they implemented the fact that indigenous language should be used in teaching the students, we've had a 15% increase in how students understand what is being taught to them. But does that now mean that I would rather stand behind us preserving our ethnical language because of its added? For everything, there are always advantages and disadvantages to everything. And Nigeria, for example, Nigeria is a country that is filled with a lot of different ethnic groups, and we need to bring into consideration the fact that as a nation, there has to be peace and unity. And if you are going to bring up peace and unity, there has to be a language that actually joins everyone together. That is why, not that I'm against the fact that we should preserve or we should not preserve our roots, our language. Our language is definitely what defines us. Our language is what secludes us. But at the same time, we should also consider the barriers that comes with just sticking with your language. And going by what you said, there are different theories that guides language and a child's understanding of certain languages. We have the behaviorist theories, we have the cognitive theories. And these theories explain that some people understand language based on the behaviors of people that they've interacted with. Some people understand language based on learning. Some people understand language based on having conversations with people. That means that the more you stay in a particular environment, the more you tend to understand their language. For me, as there are certain people that they didn't grow up, they are Yorubas, but they are giving birth to in the north. And by virtue of that, majority of them don't even understand Yoruba. They understand Hausa language. So these uniqueness are things that would make you think that, okay, since we are now in a global world, people interact online, people interact. As a matter of fact, majority of journals, majority of research, majority of things online or in the world are usually always given in English language. They're usually given in all those, we have Italian, Spanish languages. So if even while we are trying to preserve our language, we should also try to look to be more open-minded and try to also accept other languages. That's my submission.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Austin Precious from Nigerian Institute of Journalism. So I would say, even though you go outside your states, you're a Yoruba person, take for example, and you go to probably an Igbo land to serve, it is important for you to, your language is your identity. And even though as a Yoruba lady, like I bring back the example, and you go to Igbo to serve, we all have a lingua franca, which we use, a common language we use to interact with each other, which is English. We also interact with each other with pidgin language. You can just interact with them with English, but deep down you know who you are. You know I am a Yoruba lady serving in an Igbo state. If you learn their language, beautiful, good for you. If you go to Kano and you learn Hausa, beautiful, good for you. But one thing you should know is don't forget where you are coming from. Whether you travel abroad, go to another state, or don't forget where you're coming from. It is very good if you learn other languages, but your first priority should be your own language, being a Yoruba person or an Hausa person. You can learn others, but your own language should be your first priority. So that's it for me.
All right. Very quickly, I mean, the conversation is heating up, but we need to go on a short break. Don't forget, this is Fafanua Afrika, and we're talking about upholding culture. And today we're focusing on our languages, our different languages, because, I mean, we have been told that it's at the risk of going extinct. This is Fafanua Afrika, and when we come back, the conversation continues. Don't go anywhere. All right, this is still Fafanua Afrika, and we have been having a very important conversation about our local dialects being at the risk of going out of existence. Why? Because people are now more focused on a lingua franca than their local dialect, which speaks volume to their culture. And today we have a lot of opinions about whether or not to focus on the lingua franca or to uphold your local dialect, which also upholds your culture regardless of where you find yourself. So some people were about to speak before we went on the break. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Adeshawa from Mass Communication, University of Lagos. So if you ask me which language I would love to learn, I mean, everybody wants to know a global language. I would love to learn it. But then it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can prioritize global language while also learning our indigenous language. Because to learn a global language means you want to be able to compete with countries of the West and all of that. But then China, a country that doesn't speak a global language, Chinese is not spoken anywhere apart from China. So, but then people still want to learn their language because we want to communicate with people in China. If we start prioritizing our indigenous language, people will start to also, okay, maybe this language is something worth learning. And even other people in global Western places will want to learn our language. It shouldn't be one or the other. We can learn global languages while also prioritizing our indigenous languages.
All right, thank you. Anyone else?
Once again, my name is Adekunle Olashubumi from Linguistics, African and Asian Studies in University of Lagos. So you said if there were to be a preference in global language or your indigenous language, and I would say there should be no, in quotes, there should not be if there were to be a preference. There should be a coexistence between both of them. So now, let's look at the solution, not just we talking about which one we prefer. We have over 500 languages spoken in Nigeria. 3 of it which are major, Yoruba, Igbo, and Hausa. But out of these 500 languages, most of them are going into extinction. Most of them are going, they are in language death. How many of them are in language augmentation? How many of them have been developed into a writing system? A language that does not have a writing system, there is no way it can be there's no way it can still be in existence after 10 to 20 years. It's definitely going to lose its value because no one is going to be speaking it anymore. So I feel personally the only way we can have a coexistence between a global language and an indigenous language is still on the same thing I said. Everyone should be a multilingual, right from kid. From research, it has been said that kids are able to adapt easily by their mother tongues, which is their first language. Then in the tertiary and secondary education, there should be English as one of the languages that they must know how to speak. If there is a bill that is being passed that, okay, let everyone in the country learn their indigenous language at the primary education, there should also be a supervision. There should also be a continuous check if that bill is being implemented or it's not being implemented. A parent that sent his or her kid to school has to check his continuous assessments and the examination, whether there's a progress or there's no progress in the student's life, basically, like every time. But when a government passes a bill like that and it's not being implemented, then definitely we are on the verge to lose our language to go into extinction, which is also going to make it look like whenever we go to a country with a global language, we are always going to feel ashamed because we are speaking a language that they cannot relate to. But it shouldn't be like that, because even in countries like Japanese, in countries like China, they still use their indigenous language and they are still making waves as one of the most global countries in the world. So that can be the same thing for Nigeria. Even though we have over 500 languages, we can still prioritize it when we know that is our source and our identity. Language is identity, our identity is our culture, and culture is a total way of life.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oyokomi Anuluapo Mary. I'm a student of Biz Admin from the School of Yaba College of Technology. So, about this topic, I feel there is nothing to bargain about. We don't even have to argue about this. The thing is, English is a global language. Fine, everybody knows that English is a global language. But if you're telling me English is a global language, you can't tell me to speak just English. No, it's not done. You can't tell me to speak just English. I have to. The tribe I was given birth to is my identity. Yes, it is. So it's something I was born and brought up with. Whether I like it or not, even before I start going to school, my mothers have been saying this same language to me. So it's something I hear every day and I understand it. So what I just want to say in conclusion or in brief is that just as bilingual is, we should combine the two languages together so that in case when you get to places where you can't even speak your language, then you use English. Abi? It's as simple as that.
Right. Thank you. So before the next speaker, I also want to ask another question. Now, we've been talking about, whether we're choosing between the global language or the indigenous language. But let's even narrow it down. Why do you think that children, especially of these days, do not know how to speak their indigenous language? It's not like they were forced not to. Even before they went to schools, they were already made to speak English. Is it that the parents feel some kind of pressure to force their children to learn? Because you go to so many households, they only speak English. And then maybe when the child is like 20 years old, the mother now starts trying to speak their language to them. Why do you think that is?
Good afternoon once again. My name is Timla.
My name is Ajalakendi Toyi once again. The reason for this is that our local language, we see ourselves less. Like we see other languages as those that are civilized. In this, in a book written by Franz Fanon, black mask, white skin, or black skin, white marks. He said, this saying is like we Africans looking ourselves as the less privileges, while looking those speaking accents, speaking English, speaking French, we look them as, they have arrived. That's what makes our parents now think maybe their children speaking maybe global language is what makes them civilized. I can recall in 2018 when our noble governor Akinwumi Ambode, when he made it to law that every Lagos State primary student should be speaking Yoruba language in school. Some people sued him like, what the fuck, why will you do that? Which they don't know that they are making their languages go extinct. There's this saying by Noam. He said there is something called LAD, language acquisition device. It started from when a child is being given birth, because there is this Platonic saying which said everyone is born tabula rasa, which means we are all born with a blank brain. There's nothing in our brain. So our day-to-day activities, our mother's day-to-day activities is what makes us speak day by day. Then if our parents prioritize indigenous language, we will be able to pick. But if our parents prioritize maybe global language, which is English, we will not be able to pick, and by then we lose our identity. If our identity is loose, if we lose our identity, then what can we not lose again? But if we do not lose our identity, even if we lose global languages, when our identity is not loose, or everything is minor. So I would rather say I will still prioritize my language, which is the indigenous language. But I would rather learn the global language, because the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Utlubul ilma wala bisoin." Seek knowledge, even if you're going to seek it in China. They are not learning Arabic in China, which means if you go to China, seek their knowledge, learn their language, but never leave your own language aside.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
I like the fact that he's quoting this thing and he's speaking in English. Do you understand? You're talking about language adoption. You're talking about language, understanding language. We're talking about global languages. We're talking about indigenous language here. And you are saying that we should prioritize our language, which is a beautiful thing. However, he's able to also speak English fluently in this conversation, and then he's not trying to speak Yoruba to us for us to understand. I think one thing that is important for us all is to understand that two truths can exist. Our indigenous language is an identity. At the same time, it is not our fault that our language is not a global language at this point. This is a question of policy and structure also coming in, particularly for an heterogeneous country like ours. Which language suppose or is meant to take the lead? The Yorubas will come and say, oh, Yoruba is the most spoken language in Nigeria. Another person will say Igbos. Then another person will come and say the Hausas. Then we at the point of regionalization. We've had the point of different things coming into play here. Now, this is what I think we need to understand. I was raised by my great-grandmother, and my great-grandmother always speak fables. We have proverbs. I speak Yoruba and I do Yoruba poetry fluently. But that also does not mean that I cannot speak English. And if I have the opportunity to learn Mandarin today, I will learn Mandarin. If I have the opportunity to learn the Epicene language, I will. If I want to learn Espanol, I will. I can speak French to a little point, because it is even inducted in the mass communication thing that you must learn another language. Now, I think what we need to understand is we must also understand that for Africa not to be seen as an underdeveloped or a developing country, it is something that is done on us that we must adopt ourselves and not see that things are being done or because they have come to colonize us. It is first of all be practical with ourselves. We must be pragmatic to an extent. We just don't need to say that, oh, this is what it is. Where are we right now? Some parents did not even teach their children. I remember then when we were growing up, and then they would tell them, if you speak English in the house, Yoruba in the house, I will slap you. Do you want my money for school fees to waste? That's what the parents does. So now, when this is being indoctrinated at home from the start, tell me, how will such a child learn that language? In other words, parenting must also understand that you must learn and adopt language. Our language is beautiful, but then we must be multilingual, just like he has said.
All right.
So my name is Arimide Bello. I'm a creative designer, a graduate of Obafemi Awolowo University. So my take on this is the reason why we have this conversation today is basically because of 1914, when we were colonized by the British master. And now this name Nigeria was also given to us by them. So if we're having this debate about, as a Nigerian, should we prioritize English to our local language, I think the answer to that is, first of all, as a Nigerian, who are we? Our identity was given to us by the colonial master, first of all, because before the colonial master came, we were separate entities. We have the Igbos, we have the Hausa, we have the Yorubas, we have the Ijos, we have everybody separate. And we see education was not in existence. So the education we see today was being brought by the English and other things we see today. Now, the question is this. As a Nigerian, what is more important in learning? Is it English or is it our local language? Now, the truth is, in as much as our local country is our identity, we can't still water down the fact that English has done more good for us. Because without English, we will not have education today. Now, when we look at the Hausas, let me just go to an expert. When we look at the Hausas, we see them as an illiterate because they only speak their Hausa language. You see them that they are illiterate, which is not supposed to be so. Now, the reason why we see English as that is because of English was a kind of education system that was brought into us. So the kind of education system. Now, I'm not saying our local language is not important. It is very important because it is our personal identity. As a Nigerian, our language, our unity language, or let me say the language that was brought to us for education purpose was English. It is what is actually that is actually being taught in schools today that makes us to actually have elite students in today's world. You understand? So the fact is this:
we can also do this in Yoruba, we can also do this in Igbo, we can also do this in Hausa, but we should not forget the fact that English is was actually something that actually brought about education to us in the first place. So I think there should be a balance in the educational system, and I think what is being done, but it is not done enough. In the curriculum, there should be a way that they incorporate Yoruba also. Even in JAM, there should be a way they incorporate the local languages and all. Not that when you write your English, you go and study Yoruba in university. No. There should be a way, they should be able to incorporate everything in educational system to balance it. But the fact is this, English was brought to us by the colonial masters, and that is what makes us to actually have education today. Yeah, so.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, once again. Back to the question, now, why do you think that our language is not being spoken by children of nowadays? Okay, I want to take it from the angle of the parent. Trust me, the children spend most of the time, the hours in school, and they are being taught in English. I remember while I was growing up, I think I did English, Yoruba, and French. I was taught French in the basic elementary school. So I will want to say that parents also have the responsibility to teach their children their local languages. Trust me. Tí mo bá sọ Yorùbá sọ́mọ, and I want kó sọ Yorùbá padà sí mi, I will say, okay, say this in Yoruba. I want to give it to Maso Ibu, a guy on YouTube that actually promotes the Yoruba culture, and there are other channels too, like Igbo, that teach the basic part. So parents also has a part to play in ensuring that their children can speak their indigenous language. Thank you.
So tracing back to the question that said why young children do not speak or do speak their native language or not. So first of all, the problem first starts from the home, because it's from where you are from, where you were born, your community that shapes a child. Because first of all, if a child is born from like a Yoruba family where they only speak Yoruba, all you will know is Yoruba. If you speak English to him, he will be like, this is not what I know, this is not what I come from. And if he comes from like, if another person now that speaks English tends to speak to him and interact with him, he might be somehow lost because of what he has learned is different from what another person has learned. So in order to shape the problem, I think the parent should at least let their child learn both languages. So in order what they will face in future, at least they will be able to know what to do because of the two languages they've acquired. Thank you.
All right, so my name is Adekola Shikra Omotomiwa. So I feel like the real question now is not even English versus indigenous language. The real question is, what do we become when we lose our voices? So I feel like this whole thing is just priority. Like, we have to know that, okay, this is where I'm from. I'm a Yoruba girl. I have to prioritize my own language. It doesn't mean that I don't have to learn other languages. It doesn't mean that because I'm a Yoruba, I cannot speak English. Because I'm a Yoruba, I cannot learn Hausa. So now I'm a Yoruba and I speak Yoruba fluent. I remember most of the times when I speak, like when I just suddenly speak English, people be like, oh, so you can speak English just because I look Yoruba. So I feel like this whole issue now is the belief of people. They believe that, oh, you cannot do, and mostly this thing is most importantly common among Yoruba people. Because I remember when I was in school, they would always ask us to like pay whenever we speak Yoruba. But at the same time, we have people that are Igbos in our classes, but they speak Igbo, but they feel like, okay, it's only Yoruba, like you cannot speak Yoruba because you are in school, but you can speak other languages. So I feel like this thing is just like belief. When you force people to do something, like I just feel like that's what they will do, and that's
Good day, everyone. My name is Akemini Udo, the editorial secretary in Ilaxon newspaper and a student of Mass University of Lagos. I'm of the opinion that we should be multilingual for balance. Yeah, English being the lingua franca, especially in the global market, English, French, Portuguese, Spanish being the lingua franca. Some are of the opinion that having that gives a sense of unity, and I would like to counter that opinion. It doesn't give a sense of unity. It only gives it gives room for uniformity. Okay, let's do this way, but it doesn't bring unity. But I'm still of the opinion that you should balance things. Your language is your heart, which is the cultural heritage, customs, proverbs, things that you know, history, and then you still need the other language to be able to communicate. But given that technology is even growing now,
when we can infuse the use of AI and also translators to communicate with people even in our languages, even though we are going to the global stage, AI has come in now and can also be utilized. But I'm still of the opinion that there should be a balance between the two. Understanding your language to preserve your heritage, to preserve it, and also learning other language to be able to communicate with others seamlessly.
Okay, I have one more question and then I'll open the floor. And he talked about a sense of unity, and I want us to take a look at the society at large. Now, looking at South Africa, they recognize 11 different languages, or even more, right? But majorly 11 languages. And you would see that they all speak these different languages in schools, in, social gatherings, and everybody has learned to coexist. But if you come down to Nigeria, and I'll use Nigeria as an example, I don't know how many of you have been in Danfo buses and two people are speaking Yoruba and someone is like, please speak English, I can't hear what you're saying. Even on social media now, you see the comment, maybe someone puts up a Yoruba post and then in the comments people are like, don't do that. If you can't speak English, don't put up a post that we don't understand and all that. So do you think that it is because of this subtle cultural divide? And again, I mean, I wouldn't blame people because looking at our history, the Biafra and everything, people are playing safe, living on edge. So you don't want to come to a place and, I mean, in Lagos, for example, if someone speaks Yoruba to you, you can get upset, especially if you are not Yoruba, because the general saying is, why do you assume I'm Yoruba? Because I'm in a Yoruba land. So all of this subtle, would I say narrative, I feel like it makes people play on edge and try to play safe. What do you think about it? Especially looking at the peculiarity of our own history as Nigerians. Who wants to go first?
Okay. Good afternoon once again. I would like to say this, that the human mind is very vast. And as a human, you can always learn different languages at the same time. And I don't see a reason why putting priority on indigenous language and putting priority on foreign languages or colonial languages should be up for debate. Because ideally, for every single human or for every single person, the home you come from is what defines who you are and what you are. And that is the primary learning place for every child or for every person. So, once putting that into consideration, I think while I was growing up, I used to read, my dad used to let me read, or used to make me read Yoruba. I had an aunt that used to put up competitions, all these that poem, we all made to memorize it. We all made to memorize it for a certain price. So I feel like when parents take up the responsibility or they take up the challenge that I don't want to lose my roots, I don't want to lose where I come from, and I want continuity, then you will now start focusing on, okay, now we are leaving the home, we are going into the outside world. You need to survive in the outside world. And to survive in the outside world, you have to learn to adapt with what is in the outside world. So if, as a parent, you have failed on teaching or encouraging your child on giving them that knowledge of the indigenous language, I don't think you should blame it on the colonial masters or you should blame it on the environment. Because the home is the primary learning place for every single child. So you have to bridge your child from home first. Then when he gets to the environment, wherever he or she finds his or herself, you learn to adapt, you learn their language. That becomes a priority. Learning your indigenous language is not a priority for you. It's a must-have. It's something that you should have ideally from home. It shouldn't be something that you have to come outside to learn. And as a matter of fact, Nigeria is divided by ethnicity, or the way she said we have 3 major languages and their regionality. But then, citing Lagos State, for example, in Lagos State House of Assembly, they have days in which they speak Yoruba, pure Yoruba, because Lagos State is a Yoruba state. We have in primary schools, in secondary schools, Yoruba language is taken. So are we still going to blame it on the colonial master, or are we going to blame it on the fact that people are not taking responsibility for not training their words on how to speak their own language.
All right, very quickly, because of our time, don't forget the question is about unity and diversity and whether or not we have learned as a nation to coexist. Please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sarah Waje. So I think it all boils down to the fact that we see our own language as inferior. We see it as, oh, why is this person saying this thing? And like the question you asked that, oh, why, when they say, oh, translate it to English, da, da, da. I feel like if we actually put in the energy to say, me, I was raised in Ibadan, but I'm not a Yoruba girl, but I know how to speak Yoruba very, very well. That when I say people are like, you know how to speak Yoruba, I feel like if we calm down and the way we are saying, oh, I want to learn French, learn Yoruba. If you're Igbo girl, learn Yoruba. If you're a Yoruba girl, learn Hausa.
Do we have to learn each other's languages?
I feel like if you have the energy to learn French and something that is like it's not even where you are. You have to like go all over to where they are, do you understand, to learn it. I feel like you should have the energy to learn Yoruba if you want to. So that way, it's even like easier to communicate because we are not the only ones that are colonized. Because now it's looking like, oh, because we're colonized, now we want to take English as our own language. We are not the only ones that are colonized. The people of Benin Republic, they still speak their French. They speak it. Other people, they speak it, and they are thriving. But we were just looking at it as, oh, we're colonized English, let everybody speak English. And I feel like it's just because we are just like, I feel like we are irritated. Let me just say that word, by like our language. Because if you are not, I feel like you should be able to speak it clearly and communicate with people, even if you don't understand what they are saying. Because me, I like the way some words come out in some languages. So when I hear you speak, I'm like, oh, okay, fine, what did you say? But I'm very, very sure that even if I hear the meaning, I want to say it how you said it too. So that's just it.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adeshewa once again. So to answer this question, I would like to go back in history a little bit. When the missionaries came to Nigeria and they started setting up mission schools, Southerners and Northerners were apprehensive to send their children to school because they didn't understand the white man's language. But then when they started seeing the benefits of going to school, people started graduating and they were filling up positions that used to be filled up by white men. This led to a situation where Southerners began to, encourage their children to go to school. But then the Northerners, with their Islam and Quranic everything, they didn't like the idea of sending their children to gain Western education. And this led to a very big diversity between Northerners and Southerners. And it is actually one of the things that led up to the Biafran Civil War. Because the Northerners began to feel like the Southerners were being proud and were feeling like they were bigger because they knew the white man's language. They were talking like the white men and all of that. And this is one of the things that is still in play today because parents want their children to be able to compete on the global stage, to speak and be confident and all of that. And they always encourage their children to speak white man's language while forgetting that they have an indigenous language that should be prioritized. I, as a person, I grew up in the Yoruba environment. Everybody around me spoke Yoruba. And then there's no Yoruba I cannot speak. I'm a typical Yoruba girl. So I believe if parents can start prioritizing indigenous language, then children will also, there's no language you want to teach a child that they won't be able to speak. Children are capable of learning a lot of languages if you teach them. So I believe parents should start teaching their children. It's enough for them to learn English in school. Let them learn English in school and come back home to start learning their indigenous languages.
All right.
Okay, so my name is Precious from Nigerian Institute of Journalism. So I think we're all forgetting the question. The question is, take for example, you are in a bus and then someone speaks Yoruba and you are not a Yoruba person. And then you get angry all in the sake of, I don't understand this person. Now the question is, why should you get angry when someone is speaking or trying to show you his or her identity? You can just as well say, I don't understand what you're saying. You are not supposed to. I think it's like she said something. We don't like ourselves. We don't like the fact that, okay, this person is Yoruba and you are speaking Yoruba to me. I bet you if someone from France comes here and speaks French, we won't react the way we react with people that like with Nigerians that speak other country. Why? Because we see it as though it's an indigenous language and all. So that brings me to the fact that we cannot, in as much as we want to learn or speak our indigenous language, we cannot throw away English. You're in a bus. You don't know who is who. You don't know if this person is Hausa, this person is Yoruba. The least you can do is speak the common or general language, which is English. Then probably if the person you are communicating with, you find out that the person is a Yoruba person and you're also Yoruba, then you are free to communicate with the person with the language. But I don't see why you should go into a bus and then you decide to like talk. It is very good to communicate with your native language, but you read the environment.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the conversation is still heating up and will continue behind the scenes. But in the meantime, that's all we can take on Fafanua Africa for today. Do want to join us in our subsequent episodes. Today we've talked about culture and language. Tomorrow it could be something different. Join us as we dissect the challenges and the opportunities that the youth face across the African continent. My name is Blessings Mosugu. See you again.